Hey Collective, and welcome back to Altruistic Channel. This video is going to be dedicated towards spiritual sovereignty and knowing that own self-worth and what that means in this 3D reality that we all reside in. So as we can all imagine, one of the greatest struggles that we have as we grow and prosper in spiritual terms or in any type of term that is outside of the reality that we reside in the physical nature of life, we tend to encounter a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges throughout our lifetime that are there to help us learn and to grow. And although a lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on net worth, the worth of what you can create in the material world, for those of us that are very spiritually driven or driven by a higher calling, we understand that that doesn't bring any type of value to your actual soul experience. And so when we speak to your knowing your self-worth, one of the greatest things that we can refer to is lyrics and things of spiritual purpose that speak specifically towards understanding how valuable you are to a grander design and how you fit into the tapestry of life. And so when we refer to spiritual sovereignty in particular, we're talking about understanding how valuable you are for everything that you've learned and acquired through experience. And when we speak specifically towards knowing your self-worth, what we're speaking to is actually understanding how your soul is specifically valuable for the query that you represent that has been run for a larger system, right? So let's say that we encounter a lot of obstacles in our life. We transform them into opportunities. And it is in that transformation and how you change the course of your own life or your timeline that you yourself gain worth to yourself. You understand that you are driven by something much greater than you. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be able to overcome some things. And with each query, each obstacle that you've turned into an opportunity, the way that you've done it and in which direction you chose to proceed is where higher realms, if you will, pay most attention. And so that's why a lot of us speak to being unique and being yourself, because it is in how you endeavor to face your world that changes the world around you in a ripple effect. And so as we look at our worth, stop thinking in terms of how that is materially indicated, because you can't take that with you. But what you can take with you is how you chose to overcome all things. And when we speak in those terms, it makes our life a little bit more of intrigue to even ourselves. We spend the time investing on spiritual growth. We spend our time looking at solutions that are unorthodox. We spend our time in how we can prosper internally and from that change the world that we reside in and how that can then change the world at large. And so as we do these things, we become active agents to something much higher, a divine being that is literally on the planet as a means to learn something new or unknown by something higher than thee. And that is a really wonderful way to look at your life. With every struggle that you've had to endure or that you've had to actually prosper from, it was in your choice to not lay down and take it, or to stand up for your own rights, or to stand up in time of adversity, and why you chose to then convert that into a positive outcome. How is it that you, of all people, let's say, because we all believe in underdogs, and that's why even in the higher realms an underdog is always of more interest to them, is because they really have no reason sometimes well, at least they appear to not have any reason to keep going, but it is their soul's yearning to be that individual who overcomes it and grows. And so it makes your life more interesting when you look at the world in that lens. You start to see things as opportunities every chance you get. Every time that you run into a financial constraint, or with me right now with this whole thing about trying to find a company that I can do a day job with that doesn't mandate vaccination, which is a little bit of a struggle right now, it makes that makes you different from others because you're thinking in terms that others are not. And it's not necessarily that you're right or wrong, but it's in the fact that your soul is driving you to think differently. And why is it that you're having that yearning to go a different direction than the herd? And though it's not always the best outcome, we make bad choices sometimes, but when we make those bad choices, were they in fact part of your destiny, or were they just a random act? Because Let's face it, there's nothing random in our world. So you start to realize that even the choices where you think you went the wrong direction were then driven by purpose, because you did something that most people wouldn't have done. And now how do you course correct? How do you get yourself back in alignment with where you need to be spiritually or where you need to be in life? And so when I look at certain individuals who have really gone through it in the world, and that we look at who've been drug addicted or have been prostitutes or have been people who got lost and the sheep got, eaten by wolves and somehow managed to limp their way out, I find them most intriguing because they're the same people who then turn around and become a Mother Teresa or a Gandhi, or they become a Martin Luther King, or they become something of great value to the world at large. And it's so powerful that not only does it come from the higher realms of interest, but the world starts to notice that individual because of the fact that they didn't just fall apart. What makes us so strong is where the story lies in life. What makes us so resilient that we still find joy and harmony in a world of chaos? What is it that drives humanity to keep going every time that it does something asinine? Because we do. And so when you look in terms of that towards the world around you, you start to also be able to breed a love for your brother and a love for those sisters, because you understand that there's no extension between you. It's just another person. I should say it's another extension of you. And you start to understand why they are the way that they are. And it brings you an ability to stand above it, not looking down at them, but maybe deciding just not to engage it. And you start to actually pick and choose which vibrations start to match yours. And suddenly you find yourself in a very different network of individuals who are now geared towards solution-oriented outcome. They don't focus on where the problem came from or who did it. They're focusing now on how to change the environment, because it's just an opportunity to these individuals. And that is where the fascination is for all sides of the equation. So every time that we go through our experience and we come against a wall, there are people who have the ability to break through the wall where everybody else would just keep ramming into it like a ram, just over and over again. These individuals somehow manage to just walk up to it and go, ding, and the wall just collapses, and everybody's like, what the just happened? Because their individual life purpose is a problem solver. And so you see, it becomes a little bit more of a game-like quality to your life when you get to that world. Because what is more fascinating to watch somebody just like a little bit out there, just to walk up to a situation and go, ding dong, and nobody else bothered to ring the doorbell. It's just thinking like that, and it comes from understanding that every obstacle is an opportunity to not only think for yourself, but an opportunity to show the world how that type of act actually brings a reward to the greater sum of us, right? And so when I was getting ready to do this, I got super excited because I was thinking about all of my challenges and all the things that I've done. Because let's say that Little Miss Sunshine here has done a lot of crazy shit. And it makes me very, very fascinated sometimes with my own experience. And so when I was thinking of like spiritual leaders who would sometimes say to me, "Al, you live in the past, let it go." And I was like, but it's fun, look at what I did. And it's not egotistical, it's a little bit more like a childlike thing that I just look back and I go, I cannot believe I'm still here. I cannot believe that I've made it this far. I cannot believe I'm in my 40s. And it brings a little bit of charm and frivolity to an otherwise very, very, very dark chapter in my life. And so now when I look to the future, you'll notice that I walk up to situations that are very controversial and I just go, truth. And people go, oh, no, that makes sense. And he was sweet about it. It's something so individual that a lot of people, not a lot, but the people around me are always like, "Al, you are very, very genuine. You got to pull back. You got to do this. You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to blah, blah." And I'm looking at them going, I don't live in the past, so you may not know this, but I wasn't born always a pleasant person. I was a bitch. So don't worry, I still know how to go back to that sector of my life. But I choose to walk with frivolity and joy in my life, and I choose to express beauty, and I express harmony with humanity. But it doesn't mean that I don't understand the negative nature to humanity, and I can't go there if I don't want to. But it does beg the question, why we sometimes don't spend more time really looking at our lives and taking those grains of information and that intellect that we've acquired that makes us so different from the rest of us, and why don't we focus more of our attention to that. And I realize what it is that we as a society are indoctrinated to believe that it is your financial wealth that indicates where you should be proud, or that that's the only way to leave a legacy. But we forget is that you reach a plateau. There's only so far you can go with money, right? And it's wonderful, it's a blessing. I mean, hello, everybody wants it. But some of us have realized that it doesn't answer the questions that we seek. And though it may be a byproduct along our journey, we're still looking at the journey itself for what we can bring to the table. And so there's an exchange rate that's an ongoing situation. And so when we think of our spiritual worth and why there's such an emphasis spiritually on knowing your worth, it's because we think in terms of the physical world. We're not realizing that what they're referring to is what is the lessons your soul has learned that makes you choose differently than the others. One of my favorite things to do sometimes is to go and watch homeless people, or to go and watch eccentric people that are like, hugging trees or speaking to flowers. And I just love to, or I'll stop and I'll hear a homeless man or woman speaking to something that I can't see. And I will find a way to very politely sit down and listen to the conversation, not to be all nosy, but I'm always curious if there's something that we're not seeing because we're too blind to the truth around us. I had made a video recently about living in a bubble and how we get to a point in our lives where we create our own reality, and we forget that that doesn't mean that it's the reality of the human experience. It's our reality. And so for me, when I stop and I do eccentric, quirky things like this, people sometimes go, "Al, what are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm learning something new. And I will sit there and observe them. And usually, believe it or not, if you give someone an opportunity to be heard, you will find a grain of truth or a grain of knowledge that's coming through them, because they are not in this reality. They are somewhere else. And so sometimes you go, "Wait, what? Oh, I never thought of it that way." And blossom, and then there suddenly a butterfly is born, and you start to research the topic, and you start to inquire about this thing, and you start to explore those horizons, and suddenly you find yourself being that much more spiritually worthy of the blessings that you are about to be bestowed upon get. And I thought that would be a fascinating topic point for today. And so as I got all excited about the topic, I remembered that there was a moment in my life where I was on the ground, thriving in pain about how forsaken I was and how life was so hard, and tears, and just like, and I'm one of those people that prior to the whole everything coming down around me, I was one of those people who would look at somebody crying and go, "Yeah, squish, 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 squish," and I didn't get it. I was just like, why are you being all emotional? It's weird. And then finally I was on the ground being all like, "Woe is me, victim, victim, victim," and the world was looking at me going, "Oh, poor thing, poor thing." And suddenly I remember specifically my higher self just saying, "Get the fuck up, dude. What are you whining about? And how dare you?" And it was in the moment that I stopped to actually engage this weird kind of harshness to my personality that changed my life forever, because it's something that made the universe go, "What? This motherfucker right here." Which, by the way, is something the divine says to me all the time. Because I'm one of those people that sometimes I'll just go, "I don't want to." And just the wrong thing, and then I go, "Oh, I guess you were right." But I'll admit it. And so I'm one of those people, like, I'll go down the wrong path, and I'm like, da-da-da-da-da. Something happens, and then I'm like, "Oh, all right. Yes, mommy, daddy, you were right." You just go through your life where you do. But when it all ends for me, one of the great joys that I have is I get to relive some of what I've done and just be like, "What was I thinking? And what was I doing?" And just, hear the universe consistently say during the review, "This motherfucker right here, ow." What were you doing? Because my self-worth is there. I understand that all of the struggle, even though it was created by me, it gave me the beauty that I am now. Without that, I could never be as outgoing and such a change agent, and just be willing to go out there and go, "Hey, bullshit." And people go, "Oh, how dare you speak to me that way?" Yeah, me. That's because I know me, and that's because I have the right to ask this question. And people get like really thrown by that because they're just like, he's so naive. And I'm like, meanwhile, I'm the one asking the tough questions. That naivety that people personify onto these type of individuals, these wonderfully net worth spiritual people, is very intriguing to them on the receiving end, because they're looking at the person and just going, I'm not supposed to judge, I'm not supposed to judge, I'm not supposed to judge. And it's just kind of like the other person is just like, you're so naive, you're going to get hurt. And then you look at them and you go, have you not been paying attention to the choices that got me here? I'm good. And it's that knowing. It's you, when you know. Like, let's say that you are connected to someone in the world that no one will ever understand, but there is a true love connection that the divine universe is going, you two, I don't know how we're going to do it, but you two need to come towards each other. And everybody's like, oh, you're so blah, 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 or blah, 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 whatever it is. And then those individuals come together and change the world. And then all of the people who are sitting there saying, that would never happen. You're too different, whatever. I mean, I'm being in fantasy land, but you're getting my point. When they come together, suddenly all those people are like, oh, I guess they can have that. Oh, I guess God does exist. Oh, I guess there is a grander design to our world. But they receive it in a way that comes through an individual who just went around going, knocking on doorbell, or knocking on doors going, hey, what do you think of this? And the person responding. And then they go, thanks. Ding dong. Hey, do you know how to get back to the interstate? Because I'm here in the hood and I have no idea how I got here. I can sense danger, but I'm not worried about it. But can you direct me back to where I need to go? And then the person tells them, and then they go, thanks. And they turn around and go back around. They're called warriors. That is what the truth of spiritual sovereignty is that ability to stand in one's warrior path and just be like, I don't even have a weapon. And then suddenly become Alice from what do you call it? From the Twilight series, who like just beats the shit out of people and gets premonitions and saves the day at the end. And meanwhile, she's like, I didn't even break a nail. That is spiritual worth. That is a sovereign soul. That is a soul that literally looks at the world and goes, yeah, I get it. It can be a harsh place. But if I hadn't have gone through that, I couldn't be the love and light that I am right now. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit here and run from it, or are we going to run towards it? Because I've noticed that people follow, like if you're running from someone shooting, it's always the person running that gets hit. But the person who's usually standing in the middle somehow goes, I don't know how I'm here. And you see what I'm saying? It's one of those things where you always surprise yourself. And in those moments, I just tell the collective, you should rejoice in the fact that you are. It's because that's the gift you've been given. You are such an oddity to the world at large, to the universal design, to God or Allah or whoever you believe in, that they just look at you and you're just like, this motherfucker right here, how did he get out of that situation? And suddenly the entire universe is like, oh, LTV, what is he doing now? Oh my God, did he just throw up on that person's you know what? Oh, what a horrible day. And then they get the second call back and they're like, oh, I guess that was fun for the person. Something ridiculous like that. It's always that eccentric person who changes the world because they just don't lay down and take it. They just understand their accountability for what they've done and they run with it in a new direction. And though people can find us odd and they can judge and make fun, it doesn't change what destiny has in store for that brave soul. There are individuals on our planet who are stubborn as mules. They will never change. And suddenly something happens one day when their soul reaches them and they immediately change. And it's done. Whatever the behavior was is just over. Sometimes it's just fatigue at running into the same wall and a little bit of ditzy, unconscious state. But they are reached. And then imagine the worth of that person and what they choose to do with what they've learned. It is in your choices of what you do through adversity that makes you stand out to a universe. And what makes you worthy to yourself is understanding why the universe then starts to back you. Why are you as an underdog now being given the golden ticket? Because you chose to course correct of your own accord. You chose to stand in your own power and face whatever the reaction would be. You chose to follow love through controversy and let the world fall around them. And then the world that you get instead is something that dreams are made of to everyone else. But to you, it was just destiny. It was why you know your worth. It is why you understand the beauty that you possess and the oddity that you are. If you are one of those people who have physical afflictions, then understand that there will be someone along your path, if you believe there will be, that will find that, whatever quirkiness that is, endearing, and it will bring your soul and their soul together. You don't know what's next. All you can do is choose to pursue the next step. Day by day, we walk down this little path, and every day we make choices. Some are good, some are bad. I wouldn't recommend always doing bad choices because, there are ramifications to such things. But when it comes to our life, what I would recommend to all of us is to understand that we as a society are at a place right now where those individuals who are ready to stand in their truth have a worth that outshines the net worth we have been misled to believe is the only outcome. I know that sounds a little flighty, but I wanted to put that out there today because I think it's a wonderful message. Do you know thy own self-worth? Do you understand why the divine loves you so much? And if you do, why would you ever let someone else talk you out of your fate? That's it for me, guys. Bye.